Thank you for joining the GovCon Solutions QuickBooks Online GovCon Connect demo. We're going to demonstrate the overall design of the QuickBooks Online and how it meets DCAA requirements, along with the GovCon Connect system and how you run it and how the system will connect to QuickBooks Online and produce the necessary DCAA compliance reporting. So first of all, in QuickBooks Online, we'll demonstrate the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts is the main engine of the system, which is the first process that our team will perform during the implementation once you onboard with GovCon Connect. So during the onboarding process, we'll discuss the indirect rate methodology of which your company needs to perform to price on your proposals, along with adhering to your budgeting and accruing your actual cost. So basically, with the design of the balance sheet accounts, GovCon, we're very flexible in how you want to design your chart of accounts. So if you do have existing balance sheet accounts, we will stay with what you have, so long as the chart of accounts meet the two necessary requirements of the DCAA pre-award standard 1408 audit, and making sure that you do have GAAP accounting accounts that will allow for accruals to where you can have your accounts receivables along with your accounts payables, and being able to accrue your wages and your PTO. So this is a sample of how we set up the chart of accounts. So if this is new to you, we will not work with the QuickBooks Online chart of account structures that they have made for specific companies, because we want to make sure that your design meets all the necessary requirements for DCAA reporting. That when we come to the income statement, so we come to the revenue and expense accounts, it has to be very exact. We are flexible in the revenue on how you would like to track your revenue. In this example, we have commercial, we have government and product revenue. So we will offer recommendations on the front end when we do the design of the chart of accounts, and our accountants will export the chart of accounts into Excel, and we'll send them to you for review to make sure this is the design that you would like to perform with your business. The next set of accounts are the expense accounts. The expense accounts have to be very exact for federal acquisition regulations. And so what we want to do is design the chart of accounts so that it meets the way that you price on your cost proposals. So how you're going to, bill your customer. So if you have an Air Force contract and you have very exact requirements in your statement of work and your proposal, we want to make sure that we also have those exact accounts in your chart of accounts. So when you start to record your consulting bills, your subcontractors, ODCs, materials, whatever type of direct costs that you have, we need that to be in your chart of accounts so that you can job cost those for your job cost reports and your billings to the government. So this is what the direct costs look like. So in our example, we do have a standard of consultants, equipment, lab supplies, material, ODCs, software, and subcontracts. This will be a mirror image of how we'll also program when we get to the GovCon Connect side of our demo. We want these accounts to mirror what we have in GovCon Connect. So it is important on the front end, when we do send you the sample of the chart of accounts that we put together, that you do let us know, do we need to remove some of these direct costs? Do we need to add some direct costs? So we would very much appreciate that feedback. Then we get down to the indirect rate methodology, of which is discussed during the kickoff meeting. In this sample, we are using our standard fringe, overhead, and G&A. So our fringe pool is going to be supported for W-2 employees. So any expenses that the employer has in housing W-2 employees will be located within the fringe pool. Now, when it comes to your payroll taxes, we're very flexible on how to set up your payroll taxes. So, for example, if you have ADP as your payroll provider, and your import of payroll taxes is a breakup of Medicare and FICA, we'll set those accounts up in the fringe pool so that we can map directly to your ADP. Now, if you have, for example, QuickBooks Online payroll, their mapping is a little different, where they just lump all of your expenses into payroll taxes. So we want to make sure that we customize the fringe pool and expenses to how you want to map your payroll to the system. And we're very flexible if you have other types of fringe expenses for your employees, that we definitely can, put these accounts under your fringe pool. And even after you start running GovCon Connect, if you do add an expense under the parent of the fringe pool, it's not going to have any impact on the programming of GovCon Connect or how the system runs. So this design is very flexible for when you add sub-accounts under the parent to make sure that it won't interfere with the export into GovCon Connect. Then we have what we call the occupancy pool. This is an interim pool of allocation to where the company will accumulate all of their expenses for their offices. Now, there are different parameters of this interim pool, which we will cover during the kickoff meeting. Some companies might use square footage for their allocation. Some companies might use total productive labor, and some companies just might put the entire pool into G&A. So we definitely will cover that during the kickoff meeting, where this example, we are going to use all productive labor to allocate this pool to the various other cost pools, so it gets their share of these expenses. So you can see within this pool, we'll have depreciation, we'll have equipment lease, insurance, internet, janitorial, trash, office lease, office supplies, and phone, and any other expenses that are going to support the functionality and operations of your office space. We then have the overhead pool. And this design, we have a single overhead, and the overhead pool is designed to support the entirety of the business's operations. So your technical workers, when they're not charging directly to a project contract, they will have the overhead pool to charge their time and expenses to. And we want to make sure that on the front end, if you do onboard with GovCon Connect, we want to make sure during our training that we do very well cover this pool, because this pool seems to be very unutilized when recovering indirect rates for your government contracts. We want to make sure that all the key players really understand what the overhead pool means and the function and when to charge to it. So we then go down to our G&A pool. Our G&A pool, here at GovCon, we like to isolate the cost centers of all the functional areas of the G&A pool. So what we do is we have business development, which is a pool to support any functions that, you do to grow your business, whether you reward your sales team with bonuses, commissions, you go to conferences, you have consultants, dues, subscriptions, education, and so forth. A very known comment for government contractors who first view our chart of accounts are very overwhelmed with the amount of chart of accounts that we do have in this design, that it's very repetitive. So you have travel, each cost center, and then you have travel and overhead in all your G&A pools. Is it necessary? It's absolutely necessary. You need to be able to have this isolation of your costs so that you can be very well versed in making sure that the system can calculate your indirect rates in the compliance and the DCAA format. So the next G&A pool we have is finance and admin. So this pool is really the team who supports the business in accounting, auditing. You'll have your bank charges in this account, any bonuses, business meeting, conferences, consultants, and dues and subscriptions. And as you can see, the accounts do become repetitive from the other cost pools. It's just the definition of the cost pool that we do have within our chart accounts. The federal acquisition regulations require that there must be a causal benefit relationship with the pool and the base. So that's why it's very important that you do have the segregation of your cost pools and the ability to charge these expenses into your G&A pool. So further down, we have the bid and proposal pool. And this pool is supporting the accounts and accumulation for direct workers to, and it could be G&A workers who are actually writing the proposals for the government, doing procurement proposals, or also putting together proposals for your commercial endeavors. This will be, consultants, labor, and you can see we have allocation accounts within our cost pool, which will be covered when we demo the GovCon Connect. The IR&D pool is for companies who are doing research and development that they're not billing the customers, but they might be building a product, for the future of the company, something that they're going to build to sell. This is an indirect cost pool that is part of G&A because it does support corporate operations as far as growing and developing, new endeavors for the company. We do have, very importantly, a segregation of unallowable costs. Again, it's overwhelming with the amount of accounts that are in this type of design, but it is required for DCAA compliance to be able to pass an audit. The auditors want to make sure that you have the ability to segregate out unallowable costs within each cost pool that we have above. So we have overhead, we have direct charges, and then we also have G&A. So as you can see, this design is well covered and does meet all the elements of the standard form 1408 that is required for cost segregation. So now we'll go ahead and migrate to the customer center. So within QuickBooks Online, this is where we're going to perform all of the job costing, or where we're going to set up our jobs so that in the depths of the system, we have the ability to produce job cost ledgers. So we will have, the various projects that you'll be charging to, whether it's commercial or whether it's government. Now, we do have a numbering system within our job system, but it's not required that you use our system. You can use your own. At the end of the day, you want to have the ability to segregate your government project versus your commercial project. Now, we'll see here that with our Navy sample, the system also has the ability to provide clean segregation. So those contracts that are negotiated, so if you have a Navy contract that the contracting officer negotiates task orders or a clean environment, which means that you are tracking costs for various segments of the contract. So the system does have that ability. It is required on the standard form 1408 audit program that the system can produce a clean environment, and this system most certainly can. So as you can see, we have multiple jobs set up. We have Department of Energy, we have the U.S. Army, again, with another opportunity to have, task orders, clean environment phases, and then we have NASA. So you'll also see in our demonstration, we'll have labor categories set up within our customer center. And the reason why we do this is so system design issue that we have when we are doing the labor distribution. So we like to have our users use T-Sheets. T-Sheets is a really good system that Intuit owns, and it does have a DCAA compliance module. And GovCon is a viable partner with T-Sheets, and our team is certified and provides all the training. And we've actually worked with the T-Sheets engineers to make this work so that we can have a compliant labor distribution system. So with that said, we'll go ahead and go to our reports where we're going to demonstrate what a job cost report looks like. So you can actually pull up a customer by client report, or it's called profit and loss by customer. So during the implementation, our team will set these DCAA compliance reporting up for you in the Memorize Center report, so that you will know and have access to all these reports. So the profit and loss by customer, what it will do is it will track each cost element that you're charging to with each job. As you can see, we have costs going to the Navy and to its isolated CLINs and to the U.S. Army, and then we'll have a total. So it is an audit compliance factor that the company does have a job cost system that can reconcile from the job cost ledger to the general ledger within your standard form 1408 pre-award DCAA audit. And definitely we have the design that can meet those factors. Let's go ahead and migrate to the labor distribution report. So as we were talking a moment ago, where we have charge categories within the customer center that we showed you, once the timekeeping system is imported into QuickBooks Online, the system will generate and automate a labor distribution report that DCAA likes. So what it's going to do is it's going to bring in exactly where your employees charge their time to, and then it will also calculate the employee's rate that the company pays, along with the hours of where they charge, and you will have a total of labor allocation to the various projects and indirect charge codes that the employees charge to. This is a requirement that you must have this to pass a DCAA audit. A lot of the chat rooms that you see out there state that QuickBooks Online does not have this capability, but again, we worked very close with the T-Sheets engineers, and we were able to put together a modified structure so that we can make this report happen. We also have another report, the time by name by job. So you can also pull it up by employee, but you can also pull it up by customer. And what we're demonstrating here is the export of the labor distribution and the process of how you will do the labor distribution. And then what we do is we very carefully make sure that the time card data is reconciled to the payroll records. So we want to make sure that the system is compliant at all times. So, and what we're demonstrating right now is when I was discussing the ability to pull it up by job. So you can actually pull it up by employee, or you can pull it up by job. So this helps streamline the allocation process. Our accountants will train you during the labor distribution training. We will also provide a worksheet that, as I was stating, where you reconcile your time card data to your payroll records. And this will be provided upon onboarding when you do the labor distribution training, because this is the DCAA compliance factor. So if you're working with cost type contracts, at the end of the year, you're going to be required to submit an incurred cost proposal. And one of the schedules on there is exactly this task. And what you don't want to do is wait until year end and perform this task on your incurred cost proposal and find out that you're $500,000 off, and you have to go back for each pay period, each employee, and do this exercise throughout the entirety of the year. So what we want to do is set you up to win, to make sure you're compliant for each labor distribution that you do for the organization. So once you have your timesheet system in order and the supervisors approve and sign, you import into QuickBooks Online, and you do your full reconciliation, your labor distribution, your job cost system, and your regular GAAP balance sheet accounts, then we're going to actually run GovCon Connect. So GovCon Connect is a system that works directly with QuickBooks Online. We have been a part of the Intuit Developer Network since 2005. This system has been released in 2015, and we have many government contractors on the system who have passed their Department of Defense audit, so we've had no issues. So once you actually set up GovCon Connect. It will reside in the app section within your QuickBooks Online, and you can run it from there. And this is, when you run the app, this is the page that will prompt you. So you will be provided with a username and password. So you'll want to log into your GovCon Connect portal. And once you do your login to the GovCon Connect portal, it will prompt you to options to actually run the report. So again, this pulls directly out of QuickBooks Online. There is no there's no manual entry. It's 100% automated. And then, so this is where you run it. And then once you have the final output, we'll go ahead and go to the GovCon Connect reports themselves. And then it will completely populate all of these reports directly from QuickBooks Online. So the setup tab, when we actually do the programming, we'll set your company up, and if you do have provisional billing rates negotiated by the government, we'll want to populate the provisional billing rates inside of GovCon Connect, because it will populate through your cost management reports all of the rates to each report that you are tracking jobs from QuickBooks Online. The cost accounting standards requires that you use one unified rate for the entirety of the company. So if you do not have provisional billing rates, you can use budgeted rates that your team put together for fiscal year 2020, or we're just going to use your actual rates that your GovCon Connect will produce as we run each report. So then we'll go to the income statement. We have this income statement within GovCon Connect to summarize the government industry standard accounts. And you definitely still want to use your P&L in QuickBooks Online. But what we do in this particular report, which is a compliance issue within the standard form 1408, does the contractor have ability to monitor their provisional billing rates to the actual rates of their accounting system? If you're performing on cost type contracts or time and material contracts, that is an absolute requirement that the company has that ability to review each month. And this is a mini dashboard, if you will, to have that presentation so that management, program managers can have that to review each month. Because if they are working on those types of contracts, you want to make sure that you monitor those so there's no surprise at the end of the year where the company has an extreme amount of overbilling. So the DCAA wants to minimize, the over and under run on both parties. So the next report we have are the cost management reports. When we do onboarding, we will send out to your team to provide us with all the information of that particular contract. But this is what it looks like when we were talking about the direct costs in the chart of accounts. We want to make sure that GovCon Connect is programmed to the similar accounts that you are accumulating direct costs per contract within the QuickBooks Online system. So it will, this is completely automated, and it pulls directly from the general ledger out of the QuickBooks Online environment. And then as you scroll down, the bottom of the reporting will have a budget section. So we definitely want to make sure that we include the negotiated price of the contract within the cost management report. This is also a compliance factor within the standard form 1408, that the program manager does have visibility to monitor any limitation rules that are outlined within the contract. So let's say, for example, that this was a cost plus 6 fee contract, and that it did have a 75% limitation rule, which is very common with cost plus 6 fee contracts. And you can see that in this sample, we're already reaching 69.73%. So we'll want the program manager to reach out to the contracting officer that's defined within the Air Force contract, let's say, to have that conversation with the procurement officer to make sure, are we on task? Do we need to obligate additional funds? Where are we at? It's just that conversation that needs to occur at that point of expenditure of the contract. So it also gives you a percentage of funding remaining and the funding value. And then we, of course, want to identify the period performance of the contract and the type and the contract number. So again, this will be defined for each contract that you're accumulating costs within QuickBooks Online. Now, we also, for internal control purposes, put a summary cost management report into the system because we want to have, this is not a requirement by Federal Acquisition Regulations or DCAA. It's definitely just an internal control. This is a report where you can compare back to the total cost of goods sold job cost ledger and general ledger to make sure that GovCon Connect did in fact pull all of the jobs that we're tracking in the job cost ledger, because again, we want to make sure that all three totals in fact do reconcile. So once you have that fully reconciled, then we can move on to the indirect rate calculation sheet. So this is very important for DCAA compliance. So this indirect rate calculation sheet will be customized to the indirect rate methodology that is discussed in the kickoff meeting, along with the chart of account design that's in QuickBooks Online. So again, this is our standard. This is our fringe. So you'll see that we have the fringe pool. And again, this pulls directly out of the general ledger of QuickBooks Online. There is no manual entry. And then we'll also pull all of the direct, all of your productive labor categories from the system after reconciling in full your labor distribution, you know, to all of your ledgers, so that we know that that's correct, and we know that your indirect rate sheet is correct, so we know that your indirect rates are correct. So you'll see in this sample, we have a 12.13% fringe rate. And then we go ahead and scroll down to the overhead pool, of which we discussed, which is a pool that supports all technical efforts that are not being charged to a project. And you'll see that this overhead rate is 5.96. And in this case, we do have, you know, the occupancy pool. And this demonstration is the allocation of square footage. So this is a contractor who only has G&A functions within his facilities. So therefore, the entirety of the occupancy pool will be allocated directly to the G&A pool. As you can see below, we have a total occupancy pool of $7,985.83, and that is fully allocated to the occupancy allocation of $7,985.83. So again, you can see that we do have all of the subpools defined within the G&A section, so that you can monitor, you know, the individual indirect rate of the G&A rate, making note of which indirect pool cost center of the G&A rate makes up that G&A rate. So if your G&A rate is fluctuating in a material stance, you know, and then the management wants to know why did G&A rate increase so much from, you know, February to March, you simply say, well, we wrote a lot of proposals, or, you know, we had some intense marketing activities. You know, that would be good visibility of why the G&A rate's fluctuating. So then we have, this is the indirect rate sheet that, again, will calculate your indirect rates on a month-to-date and year-to-date basis that will flow through to the income statement mini dashboard that we presented early on. So then finally, we have the allocations. GovCon Connect will calculate your allocations automatically. This is one step that you will actually have to put back into QuickBooks Online, because QuickBooks Online will let us extract data, but for security reasons, we can't send data back in. So you'll need to print this journal entry, and it will be covered during the GovCon Connect training of how to place this allocation within your QuickBooks Online system. So that is, so clicking back on the Setup tab, that is the full demo that we do have for GovCon Connect. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And we definitely hope to service your business and meet all of your government compliance needs. Thank you and have a wonderful day.